So sometimes you'd find yourself speaking to someone and mentioning strategies of liberation that have nothing to do with having your head bowed and you kneeling down. And he would say something that has nothing to do with vengeance or anything. You're just talking about like sabotage and subversion and actual meaningful tactics to get you from point A to point B. Very often you would find someone say to you, we don't want to be like them, or then we would become them, as if immediately immediately lifting yourself up from the supplicant position, you immediately lose all of your blackness, all of your anti-colonial culture, all of your even morality and ethics, as soon as you decide not to be docile. And so you have to ask yourself exactly where does this come from? Why are they self-deputizing to join with the police to also say bow your head, move softly, be docile, and don't make any sudden moves? Why do they do this? Because it's not at all that they're interested in that there would be more oppressors, and so they don't want you to become one of them. I mean, there are so many oppressors right now as it stands. So if if the quantity of oppressors was such a problem, they would be in crisis mode all day, and they'd be like pulling their hair out every. They would be pulling their hair out every day. That wouldn't make. So it's not the oppressor, the amount of oppressors that matter. It's that the oppressed stand up, or the oppressed have within them the capability of doing exactly what the oppressors do to get out of the situation. That they can do a counter-strike, that they can also use sabotage and warfare, ideological warfare, and subversion to remove themselves from the position. That is the fear, and whether they are willing or unwilling auxiliary forces of the colonial state, they are that. A lot of people have existed in the world who have been principled and peaceful and moral. And when we were principled and peaceful and moral, they murdered us in droves. And there are so many people who no longer exist who have been exterminated in their morality, in their moralism. And so it is not something specific to being moral. There's not anything praiseworthy in being moral itself, especially if you emancipate yourself from the regime of secular Christianity that imposes its strictures of the oppressor onto the oppressed. I mean, there's nothing moral and morality for itself. In fact, if there was any morality at all, it is to no longer be in chains. And if we have our morality structured as that fundamental truth, or that fundamental moral principle of no longer being enslaved by oppressor, then everything should be oriented around that, nothing else. So yeah, the police that surreptitiously invade our spaces, even with so secretive that they are secret even unto themselves. They don't know that they're part of the police. Who say, just let's not be like them. Don't be mean. Let's keep ourselves. All these people do have no other purpose other than to ensure that the oppressed continues the same ineffectual tactic of resisting oppression that had nothing to do with the ancestors, nothing to do with the slave revolt and plots, but some type of newly imposed stricture on resistance, which is to walk meekly and beg or demand or say, please give us justice. Why are you talking to your enemies? You should never be talking to your enemies. It is almost fundamentally obvious that the enemies are that type of person that should not be engaged in conversation. Everybody else, maybe you could think about it, but they're the enemy, the person who is interested in laughing at you while you swing from a tree. That person does not deserve any more of your conversation, does not deserve persuasion, because even if they could be persuaded, they do not deserve the opportunity to be persuaded. An enemy is an enemy, and the police is the police. And if you continuously go into our spaces and say, let's not be like them, let's not turn into them, then we know which side you're on.